The lion was pacing to and fro about that empty land and singing his new song. It was softer and more lilting than the song by which he'd called up the stars and the sun, a gentle rippling music. And as he walked and as he sung, the valley grew green with grass. It spread out from the lion like a pool. It ran up the sides of the little hills like a wave. In a few minutes it was creeping up the lower slopes of the distant mountains, making that young world every moment softer. The light wind could now be heard ruffling the grass, and soon there were other things beside grass. The higher slopes grew dark with heather. Patches of rougher and more bristling green appeared in the valley. Diggory didn't know what they were until one began coming up quite close to him. It was a little spiky thing that threw out dozens of arms and covered those arms with green and grew larger at a rate of about an inch every 2 seconds. There were dozens of these things all around him now. When they were nearly as tall as himself, he saw what they were. Trees, he exclaimed. The nuisance of it all, as Polly said afterwards, was that you weren't left in peace to watch it all. Just as Diggory said trees, he had to jump, because Uncle Andrew had been sidling up to him again and was going to pick his pocket. It wouldn't have done Uncle Andrew any good if he had succeeded, for he was aiming at the right-hand pocket, because he still thought the green rings were homeward rings. But of course Diggory didn't want to lose either. "Stop," cried the witch. "Stand back, no further, further back. If anyone goes within 10 paces of either of the children, I will knock out his brains." She was poising in her hand the iron bar that she'd torn from the lamppost, ready to throw it. Somehow no one doubted that she would be a very good shot. "So," she said, "you would steal back to your own world with the boy and leave me here?" Uncle Andrew's temper at last got the better of him. "Yes, Mum," he said, "I would. Most undoubtedly I would. I would be perfectly within my rights. I have been most shamefully, most abominably treated. I've done my best to show you such civilities as were in my power. And what's been my reward? You have robbed, I must repeat the word, robbed a highly respected jeweller. You have insisted on my entertaining you as to an exceedingly expensive, not to say ostentatious lunch, though I was obliged to pawn my watch and chain in order to do so. And let me tell you, ma'am, that none of our family have been in the habit of frequenting pawn shops, except my cousin Edward, and he was in the yeomanry. During that indigestible meal, I'm feeling the worse for it at this very moment, your behaviour and conversation attracted the unfavourable attention of everyone present. I feel I have been publicly disgraced. I shall never be able to show my face in that restaurant again. You have assaulted the police, you have stolen—" "Oh, stow it, governor, do stow it," said the cabby. "Watching and listening's the thing at the present, not talking." And there was certainly plenty to watch and to listen to. The tree which Diggory had noticed was now a full-grown beech, whose branches swayed gently above his head. They stood on cool green grass, sprinkled with daisies and buttercups. A little way off, along the river bank, willows were growing. On the other side, tangles of flowering currant, lilac, wild rose and rhododendrons closed them in. The horse was tearing up delicious mouthfuls of new grass. All this time, the lion's song and his stately prowl, to and fro, backwards and forwards, was going on. What was rather alarming was that at each turn he came a little nearer. Polly was finding the song more and more interesting because she thought she was beginning to see the connection between the music and the things that were happening. When a line of dark firs sprang up on a ridge about 100 yards away, she felt sure that they were connected with a series of deep, prolonged notes which the lion had sung a second before. And when he burst into a rapid series of lighter notes, she was not surprised to see primroses suddenly appearing in every direction. Thus, with an unspeakable thrill, she felt quite certain that the things were coming, as she said, out of the lion's head. When you listened to his songs, you heard the things he was making up, and when you looked around, you saw them. This was so exciting she had no time to be afraid. But Diggory and the cabbie couldn't help feeling a bit nervous as each turn of the lion's walk brought him nearer. As for Uncle Andrew, his teeth were chattering, but his knees were shaking so that he could not run away. Suddenly, the witch stepped boldly out towards the lion. It was coming on, always singing with a slow, heavy pace. It was only 12 yards away. She raised her arm and flung the iron bar straight at its head. Nobody, least of all Jardice, could have missed it at that range. The bar struck the lion fair between the eyes. It glanced off and fell with a thud in the grass. The lion came on. Its walk was neither slower nor faster than before. You could not tell whether it even knew it had been hit. Though its soft pads made no noise, you could feel the earth shake beneath their weight. The witch shrieked and ran. In a few moments she was out of sight among the trees. Uncle Andrew turned to do likewise, tripped over a root and fell flat on his face in a little brook that ran down to join the river. The children could not move. They were not even sure that they wanted to. The lion paid no attention to them. Its red mouth was open, but open in song, not in a snarl. It passed by them so close that they could have touched its mane. They were terribly afraid it would turn and look at them, yet in a queer way they wished it would. But for all the notice it took of them, they might as well just have been invisible and unsmellable. When it had passed them and gone a few paces further, it turned and passed them again, and continued its march eastward. Uncle Andrew, coughing and spluttering, picked himself up. "Now, Diggory," he said, "we've got rid of that woman and the brute of a lion's gone. Give me your hand and put on your ring at once." "Keep off," said Diggory, backing away from him. "Keep clear of him, Polly. Come over here beside me. Now, I warn you, Uncle Andrew, don't come one step nearer. We'll just vanish." "Do what you're told this minute, sir," said Uncle Andrew. "You're an extremely disobedient, ill-behaved little boy." "No fear," said Diggory. "We want to stay and see what happens. I thought you wanted to know about other worlds. Don't you like it now you're here?" "Like it?" exclaimed Uncle Andrew. "Just look at the state I'm in. And it was my best coat and waistcoat too." He certainly was a dreadful sight by now, for, of course, the more dressed up you are to begin with, the worse you look after you've crawled out of a smashed hansom cab and fallen into a muddy brook. "I'm not saying," he added, "that this is not a most interesting place. If I were a younger man now, perhaps I could get some lively young fellow to come here first, one of those big game hunters. Something might be made of this country. The climate is delightful. I never felt such air. I believe it would have done me good if circumstances had been more favourable. If only we had a gun." "Guns be blowed," said the cabbie. "I think I'll go and see if I can give Strawberry a rub down. That horse has more sense than some humans I could mention." He walked back to Strawberry and began to make hissing noises that grooms make. Psst, psst. "Do you think that lion could be killed by a gun?" asked Diggory. He didn't mind the iron bar much. "With all her faults," said Uncle Andrew. "That's a plucky girl, my boy. It was a spirited thing to do." He rubbed his hands and cracked his knuckles as if he were once more forgetting how the witch frightened him whenever she was really there. "It was a wicked thing to do," said Polly. "What harm had he done her?" "Hello, what's that?" said Diggory. He darted forward to examine something only a few yards away. "I say, Polly," he called, "do come and have a look."